Okay, for this first round, I want to look at a mechanism for how this is going to be different than the current situation. Then I'm going to look at why this is needed under my policy, and then I'm going to look at why my policy will work. It'll be fairly straightforward for the first round, and then we'll get into a bit more detail in the following rounds. Okay, so for a mechanism, we would change the current situation from a US-led coalition to a NATO-led coalition. I think that this automatically means that there will be a greater number of troops being committed to the conflict. We think that already there are countries who are members of NATO that are involved in the conflict, such as the US, the UK, Turkey, Germany, Canada, France, etc. However, it's very difficult for them to commit enough troops to a US-led coalition because of the political backlash that has in their home countries. What we think that this doesn't change is the continued assistance that we've been getting from other Middle Eastern countries such as Jordan, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates in terms of airstrikes. However, we would put the emphasis now on ground troops rather than airstrikes. So we would cut down the number of airstrikes and increase the number of ground troops and make this turn this into a foot war rather than an aerial war. Okay, that's generally the mechanism. So let's go on to what the aims of this coalition are, the way I see them. So first of all, training of local forces. Second of all, increasing the coordination of troops already on the ground. Third of all, reducing areas where IS is free to operate. Fourth, to provide defences for towns and cities. Fifth, to reclaim and protect oil wells. Sixth, to assist the evacuation of civilians. And seventh, to provide emergency aid. So all of these will be discussed at some point within my case, even if it's not this particular round. Okay, so why is this policy needed? Because you can say that airstrikes have worked so far. We've been able to reclaim 40% of the land that IS has controlled simply with airstrikes. And yes, all of that's true. But what it doesn't do is consolidate that land. You can't consolidate land with bombs. You have to consolidate land with troops. There's no other way to go about it. This means that airstrikes in the long term are completely unsustainable because it's very easy for IS to reintegrate themselves back into to that city or back into that town and then continue with the trouble that they've been causing. Why we need to particularly consolidate towns and cities is because this is one of the main areas where they've been getting finance from. So this currently, when they take over a town or city, they increase the taxes to a ridiculous amount, and they basically just steal people's money, all under the guise of taxes to pay for they see themselves as the local government now, so it's taxes to pay for that. This isn't true. This is literally just them stealing the local people's money in order to fund their continued fight, and the local people cannot fight back because of the way that IS operates, in terms of picking anyone and everyone up that they think might be a threat, throwing them in jail if they got off easy, and killing them if they don't. So when we have weakened the hold IS has got on particular towns and cities, whether that's using airstrikes to bomb headquarters or holding areas, things like that, then we have to put ground troops in to consolidate that area and to defend it against future attacks. This means that people actually have some type of stability to live in because they've got the ability to then rebuild the shops that were once open and are now mostly closed. They've got the ability to reopen schools. They've got the ability to start running what can be seen as some sort of normal life. This means that you're more likely to get a sustainable growth of that country, of Iraq overall in the long term, because you have the ability to defend the areas that you have taken back. We can't do this at the moment because there aren't enough army troops in particular to do this. For example, the United Kingdom has a very difficult time trying to commit troops, particularly in Iraq, particularly to a US-led coalition, because it's seen as being dragged into another 2003 invasion. This is not what it is. And those at the top, those with the military oversight, understand that. That's why they've convinced, they've been allowed, to send the Marine forces over to Iraq, where they take part in special op missions, but that's not going to consolidate the land. Yeah, we need actual troops to be able to provide that support, provide that manpower that we don't currently have, and we're not going to do it. We're not going to be able to do it with a US-led coalition because it's going to get voted out of the House of Commons again. We can do it with a NATO-led coalition, however, because it's seen as a more accountable international organisation, and it's also seen as our duty as part of NATO to be able to support that intervention. Which is why we're much more likely to be able to actually supply the troops that are needed in the first place. So what this all means then is that it's much harder for IS to actually recover and grow, because we don't just push them out of areas and push them into the mountainous areas, the rural areas which they're currently operating in at the moment. We actually put a stop to where they can operate, because we have the manpower to patrol roads, we have the manpower to patrol the rural areas, and we have the manpower to actually take on the insurgencies that happen at the moment. The next thing that this can also do is increase our ability to train the local forces. So those are people like the Iraqi military, the Iraqi police, the other tribal fighters, and in particular the Kurdish Peshmerga. So at the moment they don't have enough training capabilities in order to keep up with the flexibility of the way in which IS fights. So they can be training them for months on how to deal with IED attacks, and suddenly it's counterinsurgency tactics that they need, and they just haven't been able to keep up with that training. This means that it's almost impossible at the moment to sustain the cities where the Iraqi government and the Kurds actually have control, because they're continuously having to come up against an enemy that can outsmart them, that can outflank them, and that can outmaneuver them, essentially. We need more troops and more training forces to be able to stop that from happening, to be able to back up the Iraqi military in a sustainable way, and make sure that they can survive in the long term with enough training to actually deal with this issue. That can only be done with an increased number in forces. That's what the generals in Iraq currently have been asking for months, and so far haven't got. That's why we need an increase in ground troops. Okay, so second argument, why will this work? First of all, because it's no longer a US-led coalition. So I've talked briefly about this in terms of the UK's participation. That analysis can also be extrapolated to other countries such as like France and Spain and Germany. Um, what is particularly important about this, though, is the way that the Iraqi people, the Iraqi civilians, feel about this assistance, because it was an actual invasion to overthrow their government in 2003, and it was seen as um, an unlawful invasion of the United States. Then the people of Iraq are very disillusioned with the idea of the United States coming in again, because they see that they messed up their country once, they're probably going to do it a second time. This was one of the reasons that the IS managed to grow out of Al Qaeda, was because we pulled out of Iraq too early, left a struggling government that just wasn't capable of bringing together their country, and we didn't have any long-term strategies in place in order to help them with that after we had done the invasion. For right or wrong, we did do it. This means that when you change it from a US-led coalition to a NATO coalition, you do not get that public backlash, or at the very least, you get it on a much, much smaller level. This means that that the local people are not likely to turn against the troops that are there to try and help them. They're more likely to see them as the support that they actually are. This means that you don't actually get an increase in the rhetoric of the Islamic State. You actually get a decrease in that, because they see that this is an international coalition that has come along to help, and they are starting to rebuild their lives. So this is seen as a supporting force rather than an occupying force, because it is not led by a single country, it is led by an international organisation. Secondly, we can also protect the Kurdish forces just a little bit better from Turkey. So because Turkey is a member state of NATO, we have more of an ability to say, you probably shouldn't be bombing the Kurdish forces, you should leave them leave them alone at the very least, and we have more of an ability to actually control that and implement that than we do under the current situation, where we don't quite know exactly where the Turkish troops are and what they are doing. Given that the Kurdish forces are one of the most efficient fighters against IS, we think that anything that we can do to help them just a little bit is probably a good thing. So essentially, we starve IS of the towns, we starve them of the oil wells that they have been controlling, we starve them of money, and we stop them from being able to rebuild in Iraq. This means that you're actually going to have long-term stability for Iraq, which means that it's much more likely that the people will be able to grow sustainable and suitable lives. Which is why only under this policy it will actually work. So the final thing that I want to say is that it's not comparable to the Iraq War in 2003, because we were toppling a government then. This time we're stopping a terrorist organisation that is literally slaughtering civilians. So this isn't per se an invasion like that. Also, we have the support of other Middle Eastern countries, and it's easier for us to commit to an alliance because this is an international organisation, not a specific country that is leading this fight. So I'll end my speech there and simply say that I look forward to the rest of the debate.